Fancy chairs.
And then they can sit over. Yeah, we went to Vermont. It was nice. I mean, what a beautiful day. Yeah. Really. Yeah. That was the main thing.
I hope so. I only paid for
Oh, wait a minute, that. So I have to squeeze myself into that thing? That's dangerous.
I don't want to sit up there. Already, I should be way down. Yeah, do you want...
No. I didn't bring my gavel either.
I didn't. We have here now.
yeah, we don't have our table anymore.
Letter coming.
I wasn't sure pushy. I just want to know where I should set up.
Because we have not been prioritizing getting petitions in court, so I'm going to come back to this. But I have to speak to us just to make sure everything. I want to.
It's over.
You like whether they're 418 or not.
Yes, but is it going to be legal enough for all these people? I mean, I didn't think I had to bring my own verb.
I guess.
My speech.
Oh, sure.
I can fake it.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I basically say
You are thinking now.
orders on the post is in order, and then
Okay.
Follow the agenda until you get the public hearing.
yeah,
I think that works perfectly. Thank you.
see how I do.
He has it?
I mean, you can't get somebody to email it over.
No, I know.
You couldn't get it.
Slack.
Just email.
So,
Me?
I mean, do we have? I could email it if you email it to me. I could.
can you send it to us?
Yeah, I have my laptop.
Well, I mean, email it to me because I'm reading it.
Carol, like,
Do you have your iPad to open?
I'm fine.
Like this is too. But I feel like a midget.
See.
I mean, I guess
I can. Heather, is it 1 o'clock? It's not. I can take it.
If I have to add anything, if I have to add something,
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Okay. Okay.
The microphone's.
It's Heather.
yeah.
We good to go, Heather? Board of Zoning Appeals meeting of June 24th, 2021 is now in session. Our first order of business is to approve the minutes from the June 3rd, 2021 meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any modifications of discussion? Say aye.
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 Are there authorizations? I don't see.
adoption of minutes.
I mean, yeah, we did that. We did. Sorry.
Adoption.
Are there any resolutions? No. Okay. Fine. Fine. We'll now conduct the hearings on today's agenda. It's good to be back. See people. You know. The way we work it here is first the applicant or their representative can make a statement, present their case. After that, I ask if there's anyone who wishes to speak in favor of the application, and anybody then who wishes to speak against the application, the applicant has a opportunity to come back and respond. After the hearings today, we will convene and vote on the cases unless we decide to put something off. Speech? I'm doing okay. So with that in mind, we'll call the first hearing, 2109, area variance for 800-808 East Fayette Street. Is the applicant present? Yes. Okay, fine. Oh, and anybody who comes to the podium, please state your name and address. I called the floor. I didn't see you here. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay, the first public hearing is V2109. It's an area variance to waive required yards and structural coverage at 800 to 808 East Fayette Street. It's for new construction to establish 193 dwelling units with amenity space. The owner is Wellington Place LLC. The applicant is Jill Bain Development Company. The zoning district is local business class A.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Definitely good to be back as well, Mr. Chairman. My name is Brian Bouchard with CHA Consulting, the project engineer working on behalf of the applicant for this project. Mike Apt with Gilbane Development is the applicant, and John Harding is also with us from Cube 3, who's the project architect. Just a brief background, you know, we've spent the last 8 months or so working on this project, starting with the pre-development meetings with the city staff and then working through some of those comments along with our internal design team. And we're really excited because we feel that there's a lot of benefits that we can provide with developing this property and really transforming what's basically an underutilized parcel within a very valuable East Genesee Street corridor, that business corridor, in providing more housing options and also connecting this project area to both the university and the downtown within that connective corridor. So with that, just the project site. So in your packet, there's the aerial here. The project site's highlighted. It's basically the western half of the block that's bounded by East Fayette, which is just to our north, Foreman Ave, which is just to our west, and then Wellington Place, which is a small street that connects Foreman to Irving. This is basically directly across the street from the Upstate Biotech Accelerator, that more futuristic building that's right across the street. It's directly adjacent to Theory Syracuse, which is a project that we developed very recently, right in this location on the next block. The site's located within the Business Class A zoning district. The existing parcel consists of about 2.2 acres, which is used by Upstate Medical University for parking. And as part of the project, which is before the Planning Commission, the current owners and the applicant are proposing to subdivide the project, the existing parcel. Upstate Medical University will retain about half an acre containing 47 spaces for their needs. And the project that's before you today is on the remaining 1.7 acres with the proposal that we have. The proposed project is a residential apartment building. It contains approximately, it does contain 193 units on 6 floors. And with that, we've included 194 parking spaces. This includes 35 parking spaces on the surface, as well as 159 spaces within an underground parking garage that we could see on the site plan here. So again, East Fayette's to the top of the page, Foreman is to the left side of the page there. The building has been positioned around the perimeter of the new parcel that will be created by that subdivision. Within the inside portion of the site will be the 35 surface parking spaces, along with driveway access for that parking area and the ramp that's shown that will go down into the underground parking area. The remainder of the space that's in the center of the building is an exterior courtyard space that'll be offering a variety of amenities for the residents there. And the main building entrance is located in the southwest corner, which is Foreman and Wellington, which actually presents itself directly south to the East Genesee Street corridor, which is where we're trying to attract that pedestrian movement from. Within the ground floor at that main entrance, there'll also be a leasing office as well as a very large amenity space for the residents. The remainder of that ground floor will be units, with residential units on the upper floors. And as you can see on the graphic, the upper floor also includes a roof deck terrace that also has some amenity space attached to that as well. So that's a brief overview of the project. Obviously, we're here for relief from the zoning code because this is the Board of Zoning Appeals. We require the relief basically as a necessity to successfully redevelop this project site with the vision that we have and matching the vision of the city's zoning ordinance as well. But there are certain complexities that we're requesting relief from both the setbacks, the density and coverage as was announced. More specifically on the variances, we have setbacks from front, side, and rear. The request that we're making for you is respect to first the Foreman Ave setback. Because this is our front yard, it's requiring 10 feet and we're requesting 1.7 feet. And what's interesting about this hardship is that this zoning district is the Business Class A zoning district, and it does not abut any other residential district. So if this was any use, other allowable uses within the district, including office buildings, hotels, retail, restaurant, even a parking garage, there would be no setback requirements, so the building could approach the street as you would like it to engage that streetscape. But obviously, our intent, even with the residential project, is still to provide that engagement with the street and the sidewalk along all of our road frontages. Two of the road frontages, which are to the top of the page, which is Fayette, as well as Wellington. Those are actually considered side yards. And although the building has been designed the same way to touch those setbacks, we don't require any variance for them because of how close the buildings adjacent to the project are to the right-of-way in those locations as well. So it's really an intricacy of how the zoning code is written that we're required to have a front yard on Foreman of 10 feet, even though in this unique case, we have 3 road frontages. They're just defined differently within the code. But the intent, again, is to provide a consistent approach to that property line along the building and requesting the 1.7 feet in lieu of the 10 feet that's required specific to the front yard on Foreman. The other yard, which is also listed in the zoning table that you have in your packet, is the rear yard, which is again the same unique situation. It feels more like a side yard because it's in the middle of the block, surrounded on 3 sides by road frontages, but by the definition of the city's code, the rear yard is what opposes the front yard and is a mathematical calculation of just the lot depth. So it requires 50 feet, and we're proposing a 6-foot setback. And also with that, the adjacent property, this is actually a property line we're forming, as I mentioned, and the adjacent property is being retained by the seller as part of this, who's part of this application as well. So again, we're providing enough space in order to provide egress from the building. The majority of the building is actually closer to 9 feet away from that, what's considered the rear yard line, which is on the right-hand side of the page here. But there is a small portion of the building that encroaches to 6 feet, and that's our request for the setback to the rear yard. With respect to density, you know, obviously the local business Class A district requires 1,000 square feet of land mass per 1 unit, and our proposal is for 383 square feet per unit, which is the 193 units on 1.7 acres. And essentially this project is not feasible to construct without the unit density that we have, which is basically the residential projects, you know, revenue and cash flow comes from the rental units. So, you know, we are proposing in many iterations of this building the minimum request that's necessary to make this project whole financially, but also as we understand, you know, this particular applicant is ready to break ground hopefully as soon as possible, and is going to overcome the challenges of things like the cost of construction that we've heard about. There are some complexities to the site, including the addition of the parking garage below the building to kind of bring that out of view. And the inclusion of some of the amenity spaces and other things that are above and beyond what you may picture of a typical residential building that necessitates the need for a slightly more dense project on this site. This does not, you know, it goes hand in hand with what is written within the Syracuse Comprehensive Plan, the 2040 plan. You know, one of the goals and recommendations, and I'll quote it, for economic development within the comprehensive plan is to facilitate higher residential density along the neighborhood business corridors. Specifically, support and encourage high-density residential projects on upper floors of corridor buildings and on properties adjacent to the commercial corridors to promote more foot traffic, interaction vitality, as recommended by the land use plan. And this may call for zoning changes, as well as selectively incentivizing residential project when market conditions do not. So we feel that although the BA zoning, which was written some time ago, you know, the comprehensive plan really captures what we're trying to do here with respect to the density that's needed for a viable project and encouraging what is a better use of the property with the higher residential density that we're proposing. Also with that, and I know it hasn't been adopted yet, you know, the rezone Syracuse is something that the city's been working on for quite a long time, plus or minus 5 years. This particular property, as we start to look at what these areas will become, is within the MX4 zoning district, which again is the definition is to establish, to provide for pedestrian-friendly, transit-supportive areas of higher density residential development. It goes on to say that there's, you know, the active streetscape and some of the other things that I mentioned adjacent to the larger nodes and the primary corridors that we have. So these, although it's a future zoning, we feel like we've met the conditions that are kind of contemplated within the existing land use plan of the Comprehensive Plan 2040, and also kind of envisioning what this area will become under the potential rezone Syracuse plan. Another factor of the density and justification is really that because this is a residential project, it's subject to density, whereas other commercially oriented projects or hotels, for instance, within the same district have no density requirement. As we know, Foreman Park is just off the page here to the south. It's along East Genesee Street. Directly opposite the park is the Crown Plaza Hotel, which has 277 units on a, 20-story high-rise building. So part of the justification is that because we are residentially focused, we're under the constraints of the density requirement. But again, making sure that we're matching sort of what the development trends are within the area, and this seems to blend well for that. There's also the adjacent projects, right? We've seen them, and you've seen them. The 505 on Walnut. There's the Marshall up on the hill. There's U Point, which we worked on. But more specifically, the Theory project, which is just on this side of the page, was also allowed to have that same density request from this board, which was 380 square feet per unit, and we're requesting 383. So it's basically comparable to the development trend that we've seen within this immediate area within a few hundred square feet of this proposed project. Last is coverage. And when we talk about coverage, obviously we think about the balance on a project site between impervious surfaces and open spaces and green spaces, right? So within the BA zoning district, it allows for 40% building coverage plus 40% parking lot coverage. This would give you a total of 80% coverage on the site, and the balance of that needs to be reserved for open space and green space. Our project is requesting a variance to allow, instead of 40% maximum required, our building coverage is 55%. However, we've placed the majority of our parking underneath this same building coverage and have the opportunity to provide only a small parking lot, which captures about 20% of the project site. So you can see if we've added this all up together, the 55% we're requesting for relief from the building coverage along with the 20% smaller parking lot that we have. Our total coverage is 75%, which is actually less than the cumulative coverage that would otherwise be allowed in the district if we weren't providing that underground parking. So in fact, our open space, which is the green space in courtyards and pedestrian ways, is actually greater than what would be contemplated under the coverage requirements of the code. So summary of the setbacks, the density, and the coverage. Obviously, part of our analysis and part of this board's purview is to balance these variance requests with the factors that are provided within the town law. And I'll just go through them very quickly. The first is whether it will produce an undesirable, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties. Again, we've looked at the comprehensive plan and the future vision of Syracuse and feel that the character of the area will be enhanced by essentially removing what is an underutilized parking lot and replacing it with a very valuable asset to that East Genesee Street corridor. And also that these variances are very much comparable to the new projects that have already been developed in the area. So we feel like it's more matching the character than would otherwise be a detriment to the character of the neighborhood. The second test is whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some other method which is feasible for the applicant to pursue, which would not require a variance. These benefits that I've talked about cannot be realized by any other methods. Simply reducing what we're requesting for the setbacks or the density or the coverage, either individually or as a whole, could potentially have a greater impact on what we're trying to create, which is the streetscape activity and essentially the necessary unit counts to make this project whole, while overcoming some of those complexities of the cost of construction and the particular area that we're in. And I think it would really otherwise steer away from the benefits that are being created within that sense of vision that the city has with respect to this particular area off of East Genesee Street. The third test is whether the requested area variance is substantial. We feel that it's not substantial given what I've talked about with the approvals of some of the other more adjacent projects to this in this particular area. such as the Theory Syracuse project, which had very similar variance requests. And just as I talked about a little bit with the setback requirements, there are some intricacies within the code itself and the definitions of what's front and rear and side that treats a solely residential building quite differently from any other building that could be potentially developed and look very much the same on this project site in a commercial way or a mixed-use way. Whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions, we feel this will actually improve the environmental conditions with respect to the aesthetics and the things that this building is going to provide in lieu of a flat surface parking lot. There's also other environmental conditions with respect to drainage and some of the things that would be solved and improved as far as city infrastructure as part of this, stormwater improvements, sewer improvements, et cetera. And obviously this particular site doesn't have any existing buildings on it or isn't adjacent to any historic structures that would otherwise cause any type of physical or environmental conditions. And it is architecturally matching, you know, particularly the Theory building, which John and I both worked on, and that biotech accelerator that's across the street, which is a little bit more futuristic looking than ours. And then whether it's the difficulty is self-created, you know, obviously this board understands that not each test is required to be affirmed. You could make an argument for almost any variance that it's self-created because we've placed this application before you. So in some ways it is self-created but based on the applicant's request, but there are some of the things that I talked about that are not self-created, including some of the cost of construction dealing with soils and stability, the underground parking lot that we've captured as a necessity of this project to reduce height and still include parking within the district. And those types of things. So we believe the benefits of the requested variance obviously outweigh the potential for larger impacts if we were to develop the project in a different way and ask for your support in continuing the project forward and your approvals. And if there's any other questions or comments, we'd be happy to answer them, either myself or part of the development team or architecture team.
Correct me if I'm wrong, 505 and Theory are for students.
Correct.
What's the target renter here?
So the target renter would obviously be students as well, right? It's within the university corridor. We believe that it's going to be the main driver and focus of who's going to lease it, but it won't be a requirement to be affiliated with the campus in order to rent a unit.
Could you tell me the total number of beds you project?
Total number of beds is in the page right here. There's a little parking count, so it's 193 units, 480 beds with a variety of 1, 2, and 4 bedroom units.
Do you know what's planned next door?
Next door immediately adjacent to us?
Yeah.
So the land that the seller is retaining will remain as parking for their commitment to 47 spaces to Upstate Medical University. It's a small flag lot and the rest is not under control of this applicant or the existing owner. So there is a few existing buildings there and there's also some additional parking there, but it's broken up between a few different owners, so there is no plan that I know of for that adjacent lot.
Apparently you've looked at the MX4 and what that would require. Can you compare that for the variances you're asking for?
It would be substantially less. I don't know what the final plan would be. I know that it calls for higher density residential development and things that we've talked about. I don't know off the top of my head. I believe it's 400 square feet per unit is what's contemplated in the last draft. I would have to check that unless Heather or Lisa could confirm it off the top of their head. But we would be much more comparable to that, and obviously the trend that is heading toward the higher residential development then is required of us for the 1,000 square feet per unit.
I think the setbacks are much less stringent, if any, if there are any.
I don't think there actually is any setback requirement for that, and again, that is because we, you know, especially within this corridor, have taken great strides to present this building to the street and have that street level activity and pedestrian access within this corridor that is supposedly trying to connect those downtown businesses, the very adjacent East Genesee Street corridor businesses, and the university area itself.
The other projects you cited don't have surface parking. Why do you have surface parking in this project?
So it's really a function of the available space that we had within the underground garage and trying to provide the minimal relief that we need from you. Because obviously if we only had the parking spaces that were available in the garage, we would be short on parking for what we have for the unit count. So it's really a balance of the underground parking with the surface parking. This is also going to provide us in our coordination with Chief Davis from the fire department, who we've met with extensively on fire apparatus access and the different road frontages that he can provide his aerial apparatus access from. Having that strip down the middle gives a lot of safety to providing a way to get to the interior of those units and those windows. So it's a variety of things that accomplishes our parking needs and some of the emergency access that we need as well.
It just seems a shame that the people facing in on the courtyard are going to look at a parking lot instead of what it could have been, a green area, and now you have surface coverage too and runoff issues that you wouldn't otherwise have.
Right, there is, yeah, right adjacent to the parking area, you can see there will be a green space and courtyard area that kind of connects that leasing office and the main lobby to an outdoor amenity space that's right next to the surface parking, but definitely a smaller scale building than Theory was, although Theory was on a larger parcel as well. We did have a small parking lot for service out back, but the majority of the parking was done underground. And the courtyard was more centrally located within the center of the building, which is a little bit different on a smaller site that we have.
I think the MX4 also requires a parking spot per unit too, even though it's reduced. I'm not sure, but I'm just wondering. Any other questions?
Planning Commission yet?
We are at the Planning Commission Monday night.
Questions from the board?
Are you going to be going to the Syracuse Industrial Development Agency asking for a tax break?
That's a good question that I don't have an answer to. If Mike has any thoughts on that.
Yes, hi. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Board.
Address,
Michael App, Gilbane Development Company. Pleasure to be here and meet with you regarding our project. In regards to your question, we are seeking the 484 tax abatement, tax abatement that's associated with the state of New York.
So mixed use development?
It's not. It's a residential development.
The amenity space will have commercial development in it?
No, sir. We'll have a lobby and leasing office for the building, as well as clubhouse, fitness center, computer area, numerous study rooms within the building. Exterior will have grilling areas, fire pits, that type of amenity outside.
So
Yes.
and I think the pointed question was, the 485J is a much different program than what we have seen in the past with projects trying to include commercial space to capture the 485A program.
Oh.
So it's a much different program. I know Honor maybe knows a little bit more than I do, but it is a different style program that captures different smaller tax benefits than would otherwise be allowable for that commercial component. So it's a little bit different on this project.
Why did you choose not to do mixed use?
The building's strictly a residential building. Commercial in this area, currently, there's a lot of boarded up commercial, and we just don't think it's appropriate for this building. We'd rather have active use. Meeting with city staff, we agreed and have the lobby leasing area, all the amenity and residential all around the ground floor.
505, there's the coffee shop there, so you're not having anything like that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody here who wishes to speak in favor of the application?
Good afternoon. My name is Mike Quigley. I'm president of Rothschild Development Corporation. I'm here on behalf of Wellington Place LLC, which is an affiliate of Rothschild Development
An
Corporation.
address, please, Mr. Cook.
Pardon?
Give us an address.
My address is 821 East Genesee Street, Syracuse, New York. As I said, Wellington Place LLC is an affiliate of Rothschild Development Corporation. Over the past 30 years, we have assembled the small parcels that make up the Wellington site. The site has been used for surface parking for many years. Over the years, we have watched the surrounding neighborhood change and evolve into a new residential, commercial, and institutional area. We feel the Gilbane proposal fits in well with the surrounding neighborhood and is the highest and best use for our property. The Rothschild family has owned and operated businesses on East Genesee Street since the 1920s. Over the years, they have invested in these properties and supported the growth and development of the area. The Rothschild properties I'm speaking of are located directly across the street from the Wellington site. They are occupied by Nuns Home Medical Equipment and SU's Community Folk Art Center. Rothschild Development Corp. has also made major investments in the East Genesee area. We developed Madison Irving Medical Center, a large medical office building nearby on Irving Avenue. As some of you may know, my partner Alan Rothschild had a leadership role for years in the growth and development of the East Genesee Street neighborhood. Alan served as president of the East Genesee Region Association and worked tirelessly with the city, member businesses, University Hill institutions, until his untimely passing a few months ago. Alan's son, David, is here with me today and shares his dad's strong commitment to the East Genesee neighborhood. Over the years, Rothschild Development explored a number of different uses for the Wellington site before deciding to proceed with this project. We considered healthcare, retail, institutional uses. We made proposals and had serious discussions with various University Hill educational and medical institutions. We looked at medical office use, similar to our other project in the area. We interviewed a number of developers, and finally, after careful consideration, we concluded that student housing was the highest and best use, and that Gilbane Development was best suited to develop the site. Gilbane is a quality family-owned company and has a long history and extensive experience with these projects. As you heard, the Gilbane project covers about a quarter or 3/4 of the site. We are retaining the eastern end of the site for parking to serve our commercial properties on East Genesee Street. Last week, Gilbane presented the project to the East Genesee Region Association and expressed a strong desire and interest in working with the association. We feel strongly the project will enhance the East Genesee Business District and the overall university area. There are a number of vacant commercial spaces along East Fayette Street. The additional residential base should help fill these vacancies and encourage further development of the vacant sites north of us over towards Erie Boulevard, where there are lots of opportunities for infill development. In conclusion, on behalf of Rothschild Development and Wellington Place, LLC, I hope the board will support our application and the re-subdivision to allow the project to proceed. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak in favor of the application? Anybody want to speak against the application? Hearing none, we'll move on to the next case.
The next hearing is for V2110, an area variance to waive the required front yard and driveway width for property at 329 Richfield Avenue to establish an accessory parking. Owner is Benjamin Farmer, who's also the applicant. The zoning district is residential Class A1.
This is Richfield, yeah.
Good afternoon. I'm Brittany Farmer. I am the co-applicant and also the homeowner for 329 Richfield Ave. We are applying for this because we have recently gone from 2 cars to 3 cars as our daughter is now driving. We live on a dead-end street that we're not very comfortable parking our car on in the wintertime when the plows are backing up our street. And we are just looking to have the same type of driveway that most of the homes surrounding our home already have. I included photos of these homes in our application, as well as going to all of our neighbors in our block to get signatures that they did not believe that this would negatively impact our block at all. We take great pride in our home and the way it looks, and we're just looking to be able to get all 3 cars off the street instead of having to leave one on the road. And that's...
Questions from the board? Dick?
Excuse me, there is no curb there?
No, we have no curb, we have no sidewalk on our portion of the block, and like I said,
You're on the very dead end.
we are on a very dead end, yes.
Like one or 2 houses in your...
Yes, I am the second home from where it dead ends, and a big problem we have in the wintertime is if by chance one of us has a vehicle or a visitor with a vehicle on the street, we have to follow the odd even parking, obviously, and when the plows come through, that side of the street is usually left shoveling about 10 extra feet out into the roadway just to get their driveway clear, which is why most of my neighbors are like, yes, please get your vehicle off the street.
Okay, so you gave us pictures showing us neighbors that have
Basically exactly what I want.
wide driveways. Well,
Yes.
They're not supposed to either, probably. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody wish to speak in favor of the application? Anybody wish to speak against the application? Hearing none, we will move on to the next case.
The next public hearing is for V2111, a use variance to waive permitted uses at property located at 202 Richfield Avenue to establish, maintain a 2-family dwelling. The owner applicant is Rosina St. Denis Living Trust. The zoning district is residential Class A1.
Good afternoon. Scott Lickstein, representing the applicant, 109 South Warren Street, Syracuse, Suite 404. The application is rather simple. The subject property, there are 2 residences that sit on this property. They have been there for, we know, at least 70 years. Attached to our application is an affidavit from a previous owner, actually the daughter of the previous owner, who lived in this house sometime in the 1970s. By the records of the city and also by the affidavits and historical information that we could obtain, the rear structure was actually on this property prior to a building permit for the main residence being built, I believe in the 1950s. So my client is presently needs occupancy for both the first, I want to call it the main residence, as well as the rear residence. The rear residence needs renovation. What precipitated this application was a building permit to renovate that rear building. Attached are pictures of that rear building, which is in structurally sound, but in somewhat disrepair in regards to the exterior of it. Presently it's basically a 1-bedroom home in the rear of the property. We've also adjusted the application pursuant to the requests of various departments of the city of Syracuse in regards to walkways, driveway depths and lengths, and we have provided a survey which would make those adjustments. As I said, this building has been there, we know, for at least 70 years. This is not all that unusual. It was used primarily and will continue to be used as a secondary residence to the main building. It's primarily used by family members and will continue to be used by family members. When I say family members, whoever is owning or renting the primary structure would also be renting or occupying the rear structure. And also it can be seen that National Grid has serviced this rear building for some time. There were bills in there from 2016, I believe, in our application. The use variance is because the lack of ability to maintain this residence, one, would certainly not help the beauty of the neighborhood. It would be very expensive to tear down, and additionally we'd lose income, the applicant will lose income from the property in order to rent both the front and the rear structure. The hardship is for the lack of rent and also for the ability to both rent it, to renovate it, and to beautify the neighborhood, and also to bring it in compliance with what the city of Syracuse is really requesting, that will have the proper pathways, the proper driveway, and the use request is for both economic reasons as well as for the reasons to beautify and maintain a structure that has been there for the last 70 years.
Do you think this building was originally a garage?
No, it never was. I mean, we have the affidavit that we have, that the woman, it was the daughter of the original owners, and I spoke to her on the phone. I believe it's in the affidavit that has always been used, for lack of a better term, as an in-law unit, and it's always been used for that, never as a garage. There's no driveway that leads to the back there, never was a driveway that leads to the back of that residence.
When was the last time it was used?
It was probably used, I'm not sure. When I spoke to the daughter, she said various family members have lived there from time to time. The previous owner passed away, but in that family, they had maintained and lived that residence since the 50s. And she said from time to time, there were brothers, aunts, uncles, all kinds of relatives who lived in that residence.
What's the shape of the place now?
The front building, the main building, has been renovated, and it's a beautiful structure. I think you can see by the photos there, it basically needs to be painted. It needs to be updated inside. There is a kitchen, there is bath,
That's the front building.
Oh, no, the front building has been totally renovated.
Right,
It's
okay. But you're talking about the back?
The back building needs work, obviously. By the photos that were provided, there's no painting, whether it be siding. We're not asking to change the footprint of the building at all. It's really just the building permit is to update the plumbing, the electrical, all of those things that need to be updated in a modern structure.
And did you say that they do or they don't intend on making it rental property?
Well, I'm not sure. It is a residential property.
Yeah, but are they going to rent it?
Well, the front is actually being rented by the daughter of the owner, and there might be other family members who might want to live there. But in order to live there, there has to be continuing electrical power. There has to be, all these updates have to be done in order to utilize it in the same manner that it's been utilized for the last, as we know, 70 years at least.
Does this building have a basement?
I don't believe so. It's on a slab.
Is the would the rear structure be rented separately from the
No.
front structure? They'd be
No,
under the
it's only going to be
lease?
rented as one unit, I would say, as one property. It's not going to be split up, no.
would that work?
Well, you would have a family member that might, I'm throwing out examples here. You could have a parent and child, you could have a brother or sister, you could have teenage children, you could, there's all sorts of combinations.
All be under one lease, you're saying?
All under one lease, yes. It'd be lease size one unit.
That's the only way
Well, that would be the only practical way to lease this property. I mean, because of the driveway structure, because of the walkway, all types of things. It makes sense to rent it as one structure. And actually, if you look at the overhead of that neighborhood, this is not the only, might be the only one who has applied for a permit, but there are structures in fact, the property right in the rear of this has multiple structures on the rear of it and seem to be more than just garages, but they might have been there as well before the primary house was built as well. Not sure.
Is this the same road as the previous?
Yeah,
Yeah, it is.
that's a total coincidence. Yes, I noticed that that's at the dead end. This is apparently this is 202, that was 329, so the block before, yeah. And my client has spoken to the neighbors, where actually the neighbors have spoken to her, and we have not found of any opposition to repairing the building that's back there, and in fact, most welcome it, because right presently, if you can see by the pictures, I'm not saying it's an eyesore, but certainly could be beautified. Thank you.
Did you have any estimate of the cost for rehabilitation?
I don't in front of me, but a building permit was put in. I don't know. I'm not sure what it is, but it's going to be updated. It's going to be into a livable structure.
The rezone does have an option in the first draft for auxiliary properties in in some residential areas. It's not allowed in A1.
Correct.
But this is. And it's only allowed where owner-occupant is in one of the buildings. And there's no guarantee, of course, going forward that would be.
Well, right now, I guess technically there is an owner-occupant. The daughter of the owner lives there. That's her primary
That could change.
residence.
There's no requirement that.
If I could predict the future, I probably wouldn't be standing here today, but I think that's certainly the intention, is to keep it that way.
Any other questions? Anybody here? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody wish to speak in favor of the application? Anybody wish to speak against the application? Hearing none. We've finished our hearings for the day. And we have authorizations for July 15th. Is there a motion to accept those authorizations?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Say aye.
Aye.
I'll just remind you that if you have to hold any of these hearings for a future decision, you'll have to add that to your authorization. Oh, sorry. I was just reminding the chairman and the board that if, as you make your decisions on these 3 hearings, if any of them have to be held over, I would recommend that you hold another motion to add that to your agenda.
Okay. So did we vote?
Do we need, Katie, are you saying we need to amend the motion?
Well, we,
Just only if you have to
if you hold any hearings, but, and we're not up to that yet, so we don't know. Okay, so, vote on the authorizations, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And now we have to talk about, because I was about to. First case, it's been a long time. B2109, 808 East Fayette Street, is there a motion?
Nora, would you want to make a motion?
I will make a motion to approve the requested variances, all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I'll second.
Discussion, rationale, please, Mo.
Seeker, sorry. Seeker declaration?
It's an area,
Oh, it is an area variance, I'm sorry.
So we have to go through the area variance balancing test. First, will be change the neighborhood character? I would say not. This is actually turning a surface parking lot into a more productive use in keeping with the surrounding neighborhood. The applicant indicated that they have minimized the variances requested so that they are both able to make a productive use of the site, and that there are no additional alternate solutions available to make those variances any smaller. The magnitude of the variance being requested is substantial relative to the zoning code, but in keeping with the character of the neighborhood under the comp plan, so relatively speaking, not out of character with the neighborhood. In fact, I don't think there will be an adverse effect. I think there'll be a positive effect on the neighborhood if this variance is approved and the development goes forward. And finally, while this may be considered a self-created difficulty, that is not prohibitive here. The owner applicant indicated that the site has been considered for several other uses over the very long period of time, and that this is the highest and best use that they can find going forward to develop the site. So looks like they've considered all other options and have landed here. And
anything else, Mike? Thank you.
No, she covered.
Any other discussion? No, okay, keep. But you're not on the board. I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the variance say aye.
Aye.
V2110, Richfield Avenue, variance to waive required front yard and driveway width. Is there a
I will second.
Change the neighborhood character? No, it was demonstrated through the applicant's photos that there are many other houses, same situation with extra parking. Solutions, I'm going to say no. The magnitude is not very large considering that this is a dead-end street at the dead end. And adverse effect on the neighborhood, if it's approved, I don't think so. The neighbors have sent notice that they are in agreement with this. It is a self-created, no, if anything, it's, well, it'll be a positive thing if we pass it because any other visitors or people that come will have a better place to park.
Nope, might be covered.
The situation of this house is like a majority of the houses, you know, I don't see that there's a significant enough reason to grant a variance in this case.
You know, I understand that the impact isn't significant, but because other houses have done what they shouldn't have done over the years is not a rationale, you know, to accept that. And I'm on the fence about this because, and self-created, 100%. 100% self-created. I'm talking, you know, my opinion, 100%. This is a person that's decided they want a wider driveway. I heard the rationale, but you know, I think so. Anything else?
Under the criteria we heard today, we would have to grant a variance to most of the properties in the city, residential.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Did you vote yes? I did. You didn't, okay. All those against? Aye. Next, use variance way uses B2111 to Richfield Avenue. The other Richfield Avenue, is there a motion?
Before you make a motion, I just want to point out, we did receive an email after your packet went out against this application from Patricia Wilson. I think we handed that out to
Her
you.
complaint is that the property will be rented.
And the second paragraph, parking as well.
It's out of control, current owners are not even following the yard in the street, and the property would change the character of the neighborhood given. Okay, thank you. Is there a motion? Want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion, we deny it.
Is there a second? So,
I'll second it.
Okay, the applicant cannot realize a reasonable return, provide a lack of return is substantial. We were provided with no financial information for the project. The alleged hardship relating to the property is unique. Well, it is, but it isn't, because oftentimes there are old garage or barn in the back of the house, in back of properties, so it's in an old neighborhood. It's not that unusual. The request of use variance, if granted, will not alter the essential neighborhood character. There again, the idea is to make it a proposed suggestion that it would become a rental property, and this neighbor has raised concerns that this is going to bring down the neighborhood by becoming a rental area. And the alleged hardship is not self-created. Well, it is, because they acquired this property in 2020, and so they knew what was there, and they should have known better.
Yeah, use variance is a hard one to overcome, all the requirements, the tests. When we go for our training every year with the state, they say you should almost never be granting use variances, although we do. And it has to satisfy all of these requirements. Using the rezone as a guide, it is allowing for auxiliary units in some residential areas, but only in areas that have that allow two-family houses or up, not in the strictly single-family residence. So even under the new zoning, it wouldn't be allowed to build a new residence here. It is a self-created because the purchaser should have realized the status of that property before they bought the property.
Board Member Stanton, I'll just add, you are mentioning rezone. I know you're just mentioning the future, but just as a reminder, it has not been adopted
It has
yet.
not been adopted. I'm saying even under, even under the new standard.
I disagree. I think I see a house back there that can be used. The objection, it says they don't want, rental properties on the block. Accepting, I guess, that they want one family, one lease, and
I would concur with the chairman.
can I pose the question? You don't want to withdraw your
He
motion?
made the motion.
You don't want to withdraw your motion. Okay, and let me ask, if we vote 2-2, that's a failed motion. Do we get to make another motion?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Call the question. All those in favor of the motion to deny, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no. No. So, take another motion?
I don't know if there's a different, I mean,
Well, the next motion would be to approve the variance. Oh, you're gonna vote against it, anyway? You're showing your hand there.
You're surprised?
Right, so what do we do? It's just gonna be a failed motion,
Yes.
which means the variance is denied.
Right.
You can't be convinced of,
I'm not sure that.
that's it's.
I'm gonna let her speak
question.
to it. I don't think that's appropriate to ask.
Unless there's a motion.
Yeah, I would recommend that either Nora or yourself make a new motion based on your, and go through the rationale.
This.
I'm gonna make a motion. I will make a motion to approve the use variance. The applicant cannot realize a reasonable rate of return.
Right, you need a second. I'll second.
We're back on top here, guys. First time in person again. The applicant did not provide financial backup to substantiate the reasonable rate of return. However, renting a property that has been renovated with a derelict building in the back, I would say, would prevent a reasonable return. The alleged hardship is unique in that this structure, based on the materials and the information given here, has been on the property for decades, and that there are similar structures across the neighborhood. So in fact, it is not unique in a way, which makes it easier to justify the use. The requested use variance will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. As I just said, there are similar structures in the neighborhood. And finally, I would say the hardship has not been self-created. The structure has been here. There's been continuous ownership. Candidly, I'm not sure how long this has been mislabeled. Feels like we're correcting an error here rather than making any substantial use changes.
I don't see that it's a harm, and to have something that's going to deteriorate or it's going to be terribly expensive.
So if this would pass, the city, they would have direct access. They wouldn't have to go through that far right driveway to get to this.
Are you asking me, Tom?
Yeah, the amended survey shows access to the street, but, no accessory parking or anything, to my mind, that would make this more of a nuisance.
Need a secret declaration.
Can I ask, if this fails, what becomes of that property? Can it ever be occupied?
They could turn it, it just cannot be a unit. It could be something else, like a
Storage.
garage or, a shed.
Not a place that people can sleep.
Not a dwelling unit, correct.
That is correct for your secret question.
Seeker declaration.
For use variance, yes.
I would say, it's a negative declaration. I'm sorry, I thought that was in here.
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor of approving the variance, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it fails.
Really?
But
It was 3-1.
3-1. Okay,
It's one less than a quorum. So it failed.
yeah, yes, that's right. But motion to adjourn.
Can I just have a point of information? I
Yeah.
didn't hear all the votes. I heard 3-1.
Yeah, Mike.
The motion to approve the use variance passed.
You needed
Chaos.
four, you needed 4 votes and you got 3.
Oh,
All right. That's, okay, I could understand, I'm in a
I know.
space here, whatever. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
You hear me looking for next time, the agenda approved?
We already did that. Yeah.
Sure, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's a shame. It's gonna rot now. I don't understand how it's not zoning.